Hello Internet, so nice to see you. We know that chords have roots. We know that if you play a C major chord, the C is the root of this chord. But do intervals have root? If I play only two notes, can I legitimately call one of those notes the root? And if so, which one? Well, it turns out that yes, intervals do have root. It's actually pretty well known if you study music theory in depth, okay? And it's quite obvious which one it is, okay? And indeed, I'm gonna explain how and why. But basically, I'm gonna say it immediately that there is a very, very simple criterion, which I'm going to reveal in a second. Because before of that, I have to tell you about the story of how I learned all of that. I was reading a music theory book, and this music theory book, I'm not going to say the name of this book, because honestly, I know half of you are going to go and buy this book, and you'll see in a moment why you shouldn't do that, okay? Because in this book, the first 80 pages were about how to build a major scale starting from first principle, like temperaments, frequencies and stuff. And then other 80 pages were about on finding a scientific theory on how to find the interval, the root of every interval. And the guy spent 80 pages explaining this theory using the undertones, which I should remember everybody, undertones do not really exist in physical reality, they are an abstraction. But yeah, he's speaking about undertones and stuff, and it goes on, and it takes forever, and it applies this theory to all the 12 possible intervals, and he finds that his theory gives the right answer in 6 out of the 12 intervals, and on the other 6 it gives the wrong answer. And given that you have only two choices, in two notes, it's one or the other being the root, this theory that takes you 80 pages of technical language to learn has exactly the same accuracy as a coin toss. Wow. That's why I never recommend books on music theory, because they are all like that. Anyway, what is the root of an interval? It's simple. The root of an interval is just the root of the simplest chord you can fit to that interval. Let me explain. Let's see, for simplicity, that your interval is a major third, and I'm gonna take the note C and the note E. Okay? So, immediately you can see that you can fit a C major chord to it. C, E, G, it's just, so the C and E, we can pretend for a moment it's just a C major chord in which I eliminated the G. And if this is the case, C is the root, because C is the root of the chord, and so it's going to be the root of the interval. Of course, at this point, all of you are protesting, raising your hand, banging your fist on the table like, Tommaso, this is preposterous. I can fit other chord to that. Yes, definitely. You can even fit, for instance, an A minor chord to this. Wouldn't be bad, right? You can fit an A minor chord to it. The notes of the A minor are A, C, and E. And so the root of the interval C and E will be, will be the A. And the A, it's not in the original interval. So the A cannot be the root of C and E because it's neither C or E, right? There are many other intervals you can fit to that. You can even fit an F major 7, with the notes are F, A, C, and E, but again, the C and E are the 5th and the 7th of this chord, and the root is F, and I cannot say that F is the root of the major third C and E. But of course, this still doesn't demonstrate anything. Some of you can say, well, Tommaso, I can take an E minor with a flat 6th. The notes are gonna be E, G, B, and C. And the root of this chord is E. Well, yes, you could do that. You could also notice, incidentally, that this chord has exactly the same note as a C major 7th chord, and the root of the C major 7 is definitely C, not E. So, still. But that's the other thing. You had to fit a very dissonant interval here, okay, in the chord, because on the E minor triad, this flat 6th is pretty dissonant. It sounds this way. Ouch. Okay, so you really need to use a complex chord in a sense, and you see the notation is more complex. What's more complex, E minor flat 6 or C major, right? So you see that C major is the simplest chord you can fit to that, and so C is the root of this interval. And we can do this for every interval. Indeed, let's pick all the interval. If the interval is a major third or a minor third, the root of the interval is always going to be the lowest note, because you can simply fit a major triad or a minor triad, just like I did for C and E. For the inversion of those intervals, so if I have a major sixth or a minor sixth, well, the notes are still the same notes, right? I'm just inverting the interval. It makes no difference if I have a C and an E, or an E and a C, which means that for the sixth, the root note of this interval is the top note, not the bottom. So for E to C, the root is C. And if I had a major sixth like E flat C, the top note C will still be the root. Yay! What if I have a fifth or a fourth? Well, if I have a fifth, let's pick C and G. Well, you see again that the simplest chord I can fit to these, it's either a C major triad or a C minor triad. I mean, if I have C and G, either I play C, E, G, or C, E flat G, but either way the root is still C. So for a perfect fifth, the root is the bottom note. If it was a perfect fourth, which is the inversion, the root is going to be the top note, because again it's G and C, for instance, and again I can still fit a C major or a C minor triad to it. It's just a matter of trying and fitting the simplest chord you can find again, and so it requires you guys to be familiar with the chords, but again, the rules are all here. I'm writing them down right now. For a third, it's always the bottom note. For a sixth, it's always the top note. For a fifth, it's the bottom note. For a fourth, it's the top note, and you're going to see, I'm going to summarize them very easily in a second. Okay, what about sevenths? Well, I can have major sevenths or minor sevenths. So let's say I have, I don't know, a minor seventh. So let's say G to F. I'm going to make it easy. I can fit several chords to these. And if I go from G to F, I can fit a dominant seventh to it, or a minor seventh. Okay, for instance, I can even fit a minor seventh with a flat 5. But all those chords have the root G. Okay, and every other chord I can fit will not have either G or F as the root. So on a seventh, it's the bottom note. And this is going to be true the same for major sevenths, meaning if I have something like C and B, so C at the bottom, B at the top, which is a major seventh, I can fit here a C major 7, and the root is C. So for the seventh chord, it's still the bottom note, and the seconds are inversion of the 7, so for the second, the top note is the root. If I play a C and a D note, the D is the root, because I can fit these to a D7 or a D minor 7. So far so good, guys. All of these seems a little bit complex, okay, but it's not so much, because at the end of the day, you notice immediately. If the number we use to indicate the interval is odd, 3, 5, 7, then the bottom note is the root. If the number we use to indicate the interval is even, 2, 4, 6, it's the top note that is the root. Boom! Simple as that. Odd number, bottom note. Even number, top note. Now, why would you need to know all these? Simple. Because sometimes you want to express a chord, and you want this chord to be understood, but you want to use only 2 notes. So, it's important to know which one is the root, so you don't play the wrong 2 notes and came up with something different. Okay, if you want to express a C major chord and you want to use only 2 notes, you need to play either C and E, so the root and the third, or C and G, the root and the fifth. Though if you play C and G, remember, it could be ambiguous and it could also be a C minor. But if you play that, it's clear that if you play only those 2 notes and nobody else is playing any other note and only those 2 notes are heard, at least the listener can understand that the root note is C. Because for some reason, that's what your ear does. It hears 2 notes and marks one of them as being the most important, the root, and the other one to be an auxiliary, the other note, okay, and understands chord progressions this way. And using this trick, you can write any chord progression using 7 chords, minor chords, major chords, etc., just by picking one interval out of them, and one note is the root, and note is another note of the chord. And if you pick them the right way, you're always going to have that it's clear which one is the root. Okay? Simply take a chord progression, any chord progression, start eliminating note, apply these, and you'll see how to do it, okay? Sometimes you really desire to have this kind of rarefied texture where you use only two notes, and in this case you need to know which of those two notes is the root, so that you know what is going on. Now, if you want to know more about how to manipulate the texture of your chord progression so that you can use less note to imply more complex chords, or you can change how the very same chord sound by playing them in a different way on your guitar, well, that takes a little bit more time to learn. And if you want to do that, I will recommend you guys have a look at my course, Complete Chord Mastery. Complete Chord Mastery, it's not a book. It's a complete video course that takes you from the basics up. We do everything you need to know about harmony and chords on your guitar. All the theory is done straight on the fretboard. There is no theory for the sake of theory here. Everything is immediately practical, and everything is developed through exercises, so you know how to apply these immediately on your guitar. If you have just a minute, click on the link on the top right to check out Complete Chord Mastery. If you like this video, smash on that like button and don't forget to subscribe and click on notification, otherwise YouTube will not let you know when I put up a new video. And if you have any comment, feedback, suggestions, write them down in the comment. I enjoy reading from you and I make videos on your suggestions. This is Tommaso Zilio of musictheoryforguitar.com, and until next time, enjoy!